Eugenio Santiago III will be presenting a paper titled Artificial Intelligence and the Urban Planner, AI Data Centers and the Environmental Paradox in Urban Development. So, Dr. Santiago, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the Green Institute for this chance to present this work. This is actually a second paper of my first paper regarding about talking about AI and the urban planner and normalizing AI in urban planning. I am a licensed environmental planner in the Philippines, but right now I am currently based here in Toronto, Canada, for pursuing my fourth master's degree, and that is the master in urban planning. Today I want to talk about a contradiction that sits at the very center of the work of planners. We sometimes ask to deploy AI to make our cities smarter, more sustainable, while infrastructure that makes AI run is quietly becoming one of the resource intensive forces reshaping our urban systems. That contradiction is this paper calls as the environmental paradox of AI in urban planning. Every time someone runs a large language model prompt, or let's say, for example, you uh, talk to ChatGPT, physical infrastructure somewhere is consuming electricity and water. That infrastructure is the data center. Right now, it is multiplying fast. For years, urban planners treated data center as a quiet or a niche in industrial use, a suburban tenant generating tax revenue, helping economies, and of course, fewer complaints before. That picture has changed dramatically. And the arrival of this generative AI has driven a hyperscale construction boom that our existing planning frameworks were simply not built for. AI is simultaneously promoted as a sustainability tool and demands infrastructure that consumes enormous quantities of electricity and water, locks in long-term carbon commitments, competes with land utilities, and cities urgently needing some housing. It must adapt to climate change and equitable growth. In the ASEAN region, where power grids remain fossil fuel dependent and governance frameworks are still fragmented at the moment, these paradoxes still sharper. Well, this paper actually uses review methodology drawing on peer-reviewed literature and institutional governance documents published between years 2020 to 2025, because this is where this is after a pandemic happened, where AI becomes so popular. And sources were screened through Google Scholar, Scopus, Global Science, and were carried to check whether it has verifiable DOIs. And the findings I am presenting today are grounded in that set of evidence. So let me start with the results. Now, in 2023, data centers consumed 4.4% in US, uh, up roughly 2% in 2018. The doubling happened before the current generative AI surge fully took hold. On the hardware side, AI racks are a different animal entirely. Traditional servers racks consume 7 to 10 kilowatts uh, and 10 kilowatts, and that is around 10 to 15-fold increase in power density within the same footprint. A study done by International Energy Agency projects a global data center electricity demand will reach approximately 945 terawatt hours by 2030, more than double the 2024 levels. Now, To put all this in a geographic terms, no, there is this Virginia's data center alley consumed actually 26% of the entire state's electricity, and in 2023 equivalent to over 1.5 million homes. Critically, local governments there could not really impose environmental conditions because data centers are classified under a legacy industrial zoning, a classification where um designed for warehouses, not megawatt facilities. And the last point is that this is a planning problem. In Amsterdam, it introduced a moratorium on new data centers in 2019 after the grid and land capacity concerns overwhelmed the planning system. 6 years later, governance challenges around the electricity supply, land use, and waste heat recovery remain still unresolved. In Ireland, these data centers reached 20% of national electricity consumption by 2023. It forced grid operators to suspend new connections. The country's renewable energy transition targets are now directly at risk, and as a consequence of approvals that were made without infrastructure capacity assessments. Both cases point to the same structural failure, and that is planning systems that evaluate data centers one application at a time, without cumulative impact assessment and without classification tools needed to impose meaningful conditions. So that's for Ireland. For water, so beyond electricity, US data centers directly consume 17.5 billion gallons of water in 2023 for cooling itself. In a warming climate with increasing drought frequency, this is not a peripheral concern, it is a land use climate resilience issue. For ASEAN trajectory, it is said that it will double, no? By 2030, across member states, data centers could account for anywhere around 2% to 30% national electricity, depending on country. For the Philippines, specifically, the numbers start and it increased 14-fold in data center emissions, and it is projected by 2030, and from 1.1 terawatt hours to 20. This is a sharpest growth trajectory in the entire ASEAN region. In Malaysia, data center power use is actually projected to increase sevenfold. So that is at 9 terawatt hours in 2024 to 68 terawatt hours, which would exceed Singapore's entire 2023 national electricity consumption. So also, what I found out in the set of literature is carbon emissions. Global centers, carbon emissions like electricity generation produce approximately 182 million tons of carbon dioxide in 2024, roughly equivalent to an annual emission of a mid-sized industrial nation. In the Philippines, this is the Luzon Visayas grid is a more heavy coal dependent power producing region in my country, means that surging data center load directly extends coal generation lifespans, and this is the opposite of stated national energy transition commitments. Also, in a special economic zone framework that we have, it allows developers to bypass this comprehensive land use plan-based environmental impact assessment because there is this higher law. So that the national law is the Special Economic Zone Act, and the CLUP Comprehensive Land Use Plan is enforced all by local ordinances. The LGU bearing the infrastructure costs, the water demand, the grid strain, the land use pressure, has no formal planning authority over the facility generating those costs, and this is a structural asymmetry that Philippine planners must confront as a professional urgency. So I will now be discussing three major problems in the three coming slides. So there are three structural problems identified, and the first is the smart city contradiction. ASEAN governments usually promote AI-driven smart cities while simultaneously incentivizing data centers construction through tax breaks, reduce regulatory review. These two policy streams are really in direct conflict. Second is disclosure gap. Also, in my country, there is no disclosure framework, voluntary or mandatory, for data centers to disclose their energy and water consumption. LGUs, local government units or localities making land use decisions on data center applications currently have no access to standardized data on water use, power efficiency ratio, or carbon intensity. Without this data, there is no informed planning. And the third is about equity and climate exposure dimension. The Philippines faces an average of 20 typhoons per year, severe flooding, intensifying drought, and sea level rise. Data center development in secondary Philippine cities intensifies all of these, and this also makes communities really vulnerable. The communities asked to host these facilities uh, to boost economic activity, but are often these communities also suffers most because of displacement and other problems arising from the environmental concerns of data centers. Um, this is actually to these data centers are actually to boost economic and livelihood in the area, but of course, with the advent of the disasters, no, the community itself will be the one first to suffer. So there are four solutions here. First is a dedicated data center zone. And this is a distinct use classification with performance standards for energy efficiency, water use, noise, grid capacity, and it should be embedded to the existing comprehensive land use plan framework as an infrastructure overlay. Second is a mandatory environmental disclosure where the government, specifically the Department of Environment, Natural Resource, Environment Management Bureau, it's the government agency that is in charge of monitoring environmental law compliance, should develop a sector-specific EIA, which is Environmental Impact Assessment template capturing the power usage, ratios, water efficiency, projected electricity consumption, carbon intensity conditions. With that, for the first issuance and on also renewal process. This can be done through an administrative order only because we have already existing laws. The third is about renewable siting incentives. So this is a green energy option program under the existing environmental laws that we have. This allows large energy consumers to directly source renewable energy. Data centers are eligible for this one. Uh, they should enroll and be required as a condition for local planning approval. Lastly, all community benefit agreements, binding contracts like this with host LGUs and the AI data center companies covering municipal water impact mitigation, residual heat recovery, local employment obligations, financial assurance for decommissioning, and empower the LGUs to impose its conditions. So in conclusion, the evidence is clear. Data centers are reshaping urban energy and water systems faster. ASEAN also faces this accelerated form. Uh, this is an existing gap on governance and ethics, but I have seen one document, which is the ASEAN Guide on AI Governance and Ethical Digital Master Plan. So this actually will govern AI systems, not only the physical infrastructure running them. So no ASEAN instrument at the moment currently addresses data center energy use, water consumption, land use planning, etc. In the Philippines, it is compounded. No, that we have a tropical climate, and we have I am happy that the other speakers mentioned about their work in the Philippines, and this AI data centers are specifically on cooling demands a lot. And urbanizing secondary cities already face water stress and electricity deficit. So there is this the projection is real and there is no current planning tool, and we must as planners start talking about this. The practical way is zoning disclosure, renewable energy promotion, community agreements. This could be deployed with the existing legal framework that we have, and the window is open for planners to really uniquely position ourselves to this one. These are the references. Thank you for listening. Thank you also for this chance to present my paper.
Thank you very much, Dr. Santiago, for such a timely paper. And you talked about AI and how it can support smarter and more sustainable urban planning, but how it also creates a very serious environmental paradox because the data
Yes.
centers behind AI consume energy, water, land, and infrastructure capacity. So my question, or my first question is, how can cities, especially in developing regions, benefit from AI-driven planning without allowing data centers to worsen climate vulnerability, water stress, and energy demand and inequality? So is it possible for them to benefit from it without having data centers in their communities?
Okay, so I will answer that first in the Philippine context. At the moment, the Philippine government is actually promoting, as I have read it in the news, is promoting AI hub, uh, particularly those before it was classified as BPO, business process outsource hubs. Because of pandemic, the investors actually go out. So this develops communities, really massive development. And I have seen this, no, and one of that is the New Clark City, which is hosted the International Society of City Regional Planners Convention in 2024. I saw how they have totally, I'm not supposed to say this, but it actually altered the ecological system. Well, it was supposed to boost livelihood, economic activity in the area, actually two provinces. But in my personal opinion as an environmental planner, it actually was, for me, it altered something, which is environment soundness. Now, AI, as I have mentioned a while ago in my introduction, we promote AI as a tool for help, not only for urban planners, but multidisciplinary across all professionals. But AI, most of the time, in this case, we are talking about environment protection, environment conservation. Data centers is the one processing data. The moment we open our chat GPT or any LLM, that is the start of that is the start of the environment stress. So at the moment, as I am also active in the one training of about the role of universities in AI use, it was also mentioned that it must start with the academe, and at the same time collaboration with the government and other actors to formulate really a correct and a united policy framework, a governance framework, not to fragment societies, but also to but not to fragment societies, but to unite and have all the initiatives for sustenance of this wonderful tool will happen, not only in the present, but also in the future. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, very well.
Okay,
Very well.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And so the next question, as this is a
Yeah.
paper presentation, is more about how the paper can be strengthened for publication. So I think has the paper been published?
No, not yet.
Oh,
It is actually a work in progress. So
great.
I
Okay.
will be adding more. This is just a scoping and
Okay.
review of related literature at the moment. So um, a validation survey tool may be developed to enhance more of the findings.
No, that's fine. So, just looking at, I mean, have you just think about, moving further into publication maybe, and you've identified the environmental paradox of AI centers and urban development. So I feel like as you develop further, have you also considered adding one or two concrete case studies?
Yeah.
Maybe not from it can be from the Asian region, to show, and then of course from the Philippines, as an actual case study to show how energy demand, water use, and land use
Yeah.
pressure and community impacts are already playing out in the real in real planning context. So that would be one way to look at it, to look for concrete case studies, and also to think about. And I think the paper could also be strengthened, especially if you're looking into publishing in the future, by turning your proposed solutions. So talking about your zoning, talking about environmental disclosure, renewable energy requirements, and community benefit agreements. So how can you turn those proposed solutions into a clear planning framework? So a framework that's hopefully urban planners and local governments can actually apply. Hope that kind of helps.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so some of those. So, but I think it's a very good start, a good way to start. And so, I would say well done for that, excellent presentation. And, we
Thank
look
you.
forward to hearing more from you, as you advance this research. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Doctor.